Courage is often pictured as something grand, dramatic, or reserved for the physically strong or the grown-ups. But that is a misconception. True courage does not come with a uniform, a title, or a medal. It does not announce itself with a parade. It is quiet, persistent, and often entirely unexpected. When we look at the world, we tend to measure courage in visible, conventional ways. Soldiers in battle, firefighters running into flames, or athletes overcoming impossible odds usually take the spotlight. But courage is not only found in these grand gestures. It is also found in the small, daily acts that demand heart over size or age. The first step to understanding this is realizing that courage is rooted in intention rather than physical capability. A child facing a schoolyard bully, for example, might seem physically incapable of defending themselves, yet the choice to stand tall, to speak out, or even to seek help demonstrates an internal strength that many adults would find difficult to summon. Courage is about confronting fear and uncertainty, even when the odds feel stacked against you. We often underestimate the bravery of young people. Society has a tendency to conflate age with ability, assuming that someone small or young is incapable of making a difference or of protecting others. Yet history and daily life are filled with examples that prove the opposite. From children who have raised their voices against injustice in classrooms to teenagers who have risked their safety to save a friend or stranger, courage manifests regardless of the limitations that others impose. A schoolgirl standing up to a bully is not merely reacting instinctively. She is asserting her right to exist without fear, and in that act, she demonstrates a level of bravery that requires a conscious choice and a moral understanding far beyond her physical size. Courage is therefore fundamentally about conviction. It is the willingness to act on one's principles, even when one feels vulnerable or underestimated. Courage also has a ripple effect. One small act of bravery can influence countless others. When a child refuses to back down in the face of intimidation, it sets an example for peers, family, and even adults, challenging the belief that fear must dictate behavior. Observing such an act forces others to confront their assumptions about who can be brave, and it often inspires additional acts of courage. In this way, courage is not defined by physical strength or authority, but by the choice to take action despite potential risks or judgment. When we begin to recognize courage in unexpected places, we expand our understanding of human potential. A young person's bravery in a seemingly ordinary situation, a confrontation in the hallway, a refusal to remain silent in the face of cruelty, can carry lessons that adults often overlook. It reminds us that bravery is accessible to everyone and that it does not require size, experience, or formal recognition. Moreover, courage is often tested in moments of vulnerability. Those who are physically smaller or socially marginalized face additional layers of fear, making their courage even more remarkable. Choosing to confront a threat despite the obvious risks demonstrates a level of moral and emotional strength that is far more profound than physical prowess. A war veteran might be respected for the courage displayed in uniform, but the courage of someone without training, someone whose entire body feels physically incapable of confrontation, is just as powerful, if not more so, because it arises from an internal, conscious decision rather than a conditioned response. This reinforces the idea that courage is not measured by size or age. It is measured by the depth of the commitment to act rightly in the face of fear. The concept of courage extends beyond immediate physical confrontations. It encompasses the emotional and psychological risks that come with standing up for oneself or others. A small child speaking up against bullying, for instance, might face ridicule, isolation, or retaliation. The courage required to do so is magnified by these potential consequences. Courage is thus intrinsically tied to the ability to confront discomfort, uncertainty, and opposition. It is a demonstration of resilience, moral clarity, and inner strength. Even those who are physically small or young can embody this form of courage in ways that profoundly affect their communities. Courage also reshapes perception. When someone underestimated, by virtue of age, size, or circumstance, demonstrates bravery. It challenges societal assumptions. Witnessing a small person act decisively against injustice forces observers to reevaluate their understanding of strength, vulnerability, and capability. This redefinition of courage is transformative, not only for the individual taking action, but for the larger community that learns from it. Courage, then, is less about outward appearances and more about the willingness to confront fear, to act with integrity, and to insist on justice, regardless of the personal cost. In everyday life, courage can take many forms beyond physical confrontation. Speaking up in class, defending someone being mocked, resisting peer pressure, or even simply saying no in the face of coercion requires bravery. These acts demonstrate that courage is an inner quality, independent of outward physical strength or age. It is about choosing action over inaction, integrity over conformity, and empathy over indifference. In every moment that a person stands firm despite feeling small or powerless, they remind us that courage is not a privilege of the strong or the grown. It is a potential within every human being. Standing up for others is one of the most profound demonstrations of human strength, yet it is often misunderstood. Many people associate strength with personal gain, self-protection, or dominance, but true strength lies in the ability to act not for oneself, but for the well-being of someone else. When someone intervenes to protect another, they are choosing to place the needs, safety, and dignity of another above their own comfort or security. This kind of strength is rare because it requires a conscious decision to confront fear, uncertainty, or even danger without any guarantee of reward. It is easier to turn away, to avoid involvement, to convince oneself that it is not my problem. But choosing to stand up for others reflects a level of moral and emotional courage that transcends ordinary measures of power. The act of defending someone else, particularly someone who is vulnerable, is an acknowledgement that each person's worth matters and that injustice, no matter where it occurs, demands a response. One of the most striking aspects of standing up for others is the inherent risk involved. Physical, emotional, or social consequences are often a real possibility. Intervening in a situation of bullying, harassment, or danger exposes the defender to confrontation, criticism, or harm. Yet despite these risks, those who step forward demonstrate an internal fortitude that is far greater than the outward appearances might suggest. Strength is not simply the ability to withstand challenges for oneself, but the capacity to face them for the sake of someone else. This is what separates instinct from integrity, reaction from principle. Choosing to defend another person is an act of moral courage. It is the deliberate decision to protect the defenseless and to challenge wrongdoing, even when doing so is uncomfortable or dangerous. Standing up for others also reinforces the bonds of community and shared humanity. In societies where individuals act solely out of self-interest, fear, or indifference, injustice thrives because no one intervenes to challenge it. When one person steps forward to defend another, they send a message that cruelty, bullying, and harm will not go unchallenged. They demonstrate that the community is stronger when its members act in solidarity and that human dignity is worth protecting regardless of personal cost. The ripple effect of such actions is significant. Witnessing someone defend another can inspire courage in others, encourage empathy, and create a culture where standing up for what is right becomes a shared value rather than an isolated exception. This kind of strength is particularly evident when protecting those who are weaker, younger, or more vulnerable. Children, the elderly, or anyone facing intimidation or aggression often rely on the intervention of others to ensure their safety. Those who step in are not just physically defending someone. They are affirming their belief in fairness, justice, and the inherent value of every individual. This affirmation of human dignity is itself a form of strength that cannot be measured by physical prowess alone. Standing up for someone else is as much about courage of character as it is about courage of action. It requires empathy, moral clarity, and the willingness to endure potential consequences in order to protect another. Moreover, defending others often requires quick thinking and decisiveness. Situations of conflict rarely provide time for careful deliberation. Choosing to act in the moment, to prioritize the safety or dignity of another over hesitation or fear, reflects both emotional intelligence and inner strength. It demonstrates that true power does not always reside in physical force or authority, but in the ability to make difficult, principled choices under pressure. Those who step forward in defense of another show that strength is deeply intertwined with responsibility, integrity, and the courage to act even when doing so challenges comfort, convention, or expectation. The act of standing up for others also has a transformative effect on the individual performing it. When a person intervenes to protect someone else, they are exercising their own moral and emotional muscles, developing resilience, empathy, and confidence. They learn firsthand that courage is not about winning a fight, gaining recognition, or asserting dominance, but about making the right choice in service of others. This experience can shape a lifetime of values, guiding future actions and interactions with the world. Individuals who act to defend others often discover that true strength lies not in isolation or self-interest, but in the willingness to connect with the needs of others and to shoulder responsibility for their well-being. Standing up for others also challenges societal assumptions about power and vulnerability. It disrupts the notion that might makes right or that the powerful have the sole ability to shape outcomes. When someone chooses to intervene in defense of another, they assert that moral courage can outweigh intimidation, that compassion can counteract cruelty, and that individuals, regardless of age, status, or physical ability, can make a tangible difference. Strength is therefore not measured by the ability to dominate, but by the willingness to protect, support, and defend. True power is the ability to create safety, justice, and dignity for others, even at personal risk. Every act of defense, every choice to intervene, carries significance beyond the immediate moment. By standing up for others, people demonstrate that strength is not self-centered or self-serving. They show that human beings are capable of empathy, moral clarity, and decisive action, and that courage becomes meaningful when it serves others rather than just oneself. This kind of strength builds character, transforms communities, and challenges everyone to reconsider what it truly means to be brave. Experience in battle leaves a mark that is far more than physical. It reshapes perception, sharpens judgment, and instills a sense of responsibility that transcends ordinary life. Those who have faced combat have seen danger, risk, and unpredictability in ways most people never encounter. They have witnessed the fragility of life, the consequences of misjudgment, and the profound weight of choices made under pressure. This experience trains a person to recognize threats quickly, to assess situations with clarity, and to respond decisively. A veteran who has walked through uncertainty and emerged alive understands the stakes of confrontation, both immediate and long-term, and carries a heightened vigilance that comes from first-hand knowledge rather than theory or speculation. This awareness is not rooted in fear but in experience, a disciplined understanding that situations often unfold in unpredictable ways, and that careful observation and preparation can prevent harm before it escalates. The lessons learned in battle also extend beyond physical survival to matters of justice and ethical responsibility. Combat teaches that actions have consequences, that in moments of crisis hesitation can cost lives, and that failing to act when necessary can perpetuate harm. A veteran learns that strength alone is insufficient. Wisdom and moral clarity are essential. This clarity becomes invaluable when confronting wrongdoing in civilian life. Someone who has faced organized threats on the battlefield can see patterns of intimidation, coercion, and aggression that others might miss. They understand how fear operates, how it can manipulate behavior, and how decisive intervention can shift the balance of a dangerous situation. Experience in battle thus cultivates both vigilance, the ability to detect danger, and a keen sense of justice, the instinct to respond appropriately to protect the vulnerable. Battle also teaches restraint alongside decisiveness. Those who have seen the cost of violence understand that force is only justified when necessary, and that indiscriminate action can create more harm than good. This balance between strength and judgment, between action and caution, defines the experienced combatant. In civilian contexts, this translates to measured, effective responses in moments of conflict. When someone with this experience steps into a situation where another person is being threatened, they act not out of anger, ego, or impulse, but out of a trained understanding of risk, responsibility, and the need to restore fairness. Their vigilance is paired with a deliberate commitment to justice, ensuring that their actions protect without escalating harm unnecessarily. Another aspect of battle experience is the development of situational awareness. In combat, every sound, movement, or change in the environment carries significance. Veterans learn to read subtle cues, anticipate possible outcomes, and make quick judgments with incomplete information. This skill becomes invaluable in everyday life when confronting aggressive behavior, bullying, or intimidation. Recognizing potential danger before it fully manifests allows timely intervention, reducing the likelihood of escalation and protecting those who may be defenseless. The combination of vigilance and ethical judgment cultivated in battle equips a person to act decisively and effectively, even in chaotic or uncertain circumstances. Experience in battle also fosters resilience. Veterans have faced extreme stress, unexpected challenges, and the reality of life or death stakes. This resilience is both mental and emotional, a deep-seated confidence in one's ability to face adversity and maintain composure under pressure. It allows them to confront difficult situations without succumbing to panic, frustration, or indecision. When protecting others, this resilience manifests as calm leadership, the ability to think clearly, and the capacity to take responsibility for outcomes. The lessons of endurance and perseverance learned in combat shape responses to conflict in profound ways, making experience in battle a training ground not only for physical readiness, but for moral courage and ethical vigilance. Furthermore, veterans carry an acute sense of duty. In combat, every individual understands the importance of looking out for others, of defending those who cannot defend themselves, and of acting with integrity even when no one is watching. This sense of responsibility does not disappear once the battlefield is left behind. In civilian life, it translates into an instinct to intervene when injustice occurs, to protect the vulnerable, and to uphold principles of fairness and safety. A veteran who steps into a threatening situation does so with an understanding that protecting others is not optional, that ignoring wrongdoing has consequences, and that courage coupled with experience can prevent harm that might otherwise go unchecked. Finally, experience in battle teaches humility. Those who have faced extreme danger know the limits of personal power and the importance of teamwork, strategy, and foresight. This humility ensures that actions are guided by wisdom rather than arrogance, and by careful observation rather than impulse. It reinforces the idea that vigilance and justice are not about domination, but about service, responsibility, and the protection of those who are unable to defend themselves. This blend of alertness, ethical clarity, and practical experience defines the true strength of someone who has been shaped by battle and equips them to act decisively in moments that demand both courage and judgment. Bullies rarely pause to consider the full scope of their actions or the consequences they may bring. They often operate under a narrow assumption that fear, intimidation, or physical advantage will guarantee compliance. They assume that those they target are weak, isolated, or incapable of resisting. This misjudgment is central to the psychology of bullying. It creates a false sense of superiority, allowing them to act aggressively with little hesitation or self-reflection. But this assumption, this belief that their targets are powerless, is almost always flawed. People are far more complex than bullies anticipate, and strength often emerges in unexpected forms. Underestimating someone because of age, size, or quiet demeanor is a mistake that can backfire in ways the aggressor never predicts. The misjudgment of bullies stems in part from their desire for control. Control is maintained through fear, and fear is often assumed to be universal in its response. They believe that intimidation works on everyone the same way, that those who appear smaller, quieter, or younger will automatically submit. Yet human resilience is not uniform, and courage does not correlate with outward appearances. Many people who are physically smaller or socially marginalized possess an inner strength, a moral clarity, and a determination to resist injustice that bullies fail to anticipate. When confronted with someone willing to stand up, even against overwhelming odds, the bully's perception of control is shattered. This miscalculation can quickly turn the dynamics of power on its head. Another reason bullies misjudge those they target is a failure to recognize past experiences and hidden capabilities. A person may appear ordinary or unremarkable on the surface, yet carry within them the lessons of discipline, resilience, or moral training that prepare them to respond decisively when challenged. Veterans, parents, teachers, or even peers who have faced previous conflicts or life challenges often have an acute sense of risk, strategy, and justice that equips them to act where others might hesitate. Bullies rarely account for this hidden strength. They assume compliance will continue uninterrupted, not realizing that a momentary provocation could meet with an unexpected, immediate, and powerful response. Bullies also underestimate the social and moral instincts of their victims. Many assume that their targets will prioritize self-preservation above all else. While self-preservation is natural, it is not the only motivator. The desire to protect others, to act in defense of fairness, and to challenge injustice can override fear in remarkable ways. A target who refuses to be intimidated, or an observer who intervenes on their behalf, can completely dismantle the bully's expectation of dominance. Misjudgment occurs because bullies rarely consider the ethical dimension of human behavior. They assume people will respond with fear or passivity, ignoring the possibility that a strong moral compass can drive someone to action regardless of danger. This pattern of misjudgment is also amplified by the bully's reliance on superficial cues. They often judge by physical size, social status, or perceived confidence, overlooking qualities like courage, experience, and decisiveness. Many of those they intend to intimidate carry skills, instincts, or wisdom that the bully cannot see. This hidden capacity for resistance is what makes bullies vulnerable to miscalculation. When someone underestimated responds with courage, the imbalance shifts instantly. What the bully saw as a simple interaction becomes a confrontation they are unprepared for, revealing the flaw in their assumptions and the danger of underestimating others. History and everyday life are filled with examples where bullies misjudge their opponents. In schools, workplaces, and communities, acts of aggression are often met with unexpected courage. The assumption that fear will dictate behavior is replaced by surprise and, sometimes, immediate accountability. This demonstrates that the measure of a person's power is not determined by their ability to intimidate, but by the willingness of those around them to resist oppression. Misjudgment by bullies occurs because they focus on outward appearances, failing to anticipate the inner resolve, preparation, and moral clarity that may confront them. Furthermore, the misjudgment of bullies teaches a valuable lesson about the unpredictability of courage and human response. Aggression is a gamble. It relies on assumptions that can be wrong. When someone steps in to defend themselves or others, they challenge not only the immediate threat, but also the underlying logic of intimidation. Bullies assume that dominance is easy and that submission is the natural outcome of fear. This assumption ignores the complexities of human psychology, the capacity for loyalty, bravery, and justice that can emerge in any person, regardless of apparent weakness. The failure to anticipate resistance also emphasizes the importance of preparation and awareness. Those who have faced challenges, danger, or adversity develop a heightened ability to detect threats, evaluate risks, and respond effectively. Bullies often operate without this awareness, relying solely on superficial assessments of vulnerability. The result is that their aggression is frequently met with responses they never imagined, responses that are measured, strategic, and morally driven. Misjudgment is thus not only a flaw in perception but a reflection of the arrogance inherent in bullying behavior. Ultimately, bullies miscalculate because they underestimate both the courage and the moral determination of those they target. They assume compliance, passivity, or fear will dominate, failing to recognize that strength often resides where it is least expected. This misjudgment is a reminder that power is not simply physical or social. It is moral, ethical, and strategic, and it can be wielded by anyone willing to stand for what is right. Community is often described as a network of relationships, a shared space where people live, work, and interact. But it is far more than that. It is the foundation of support, protection, and resilience that shapes our ability to respond to challenges. Within any community, heroes are not always the ones who wear uniforms or achieve fame. They are often ordinary people who make extraordinary choices in critical moments. The essence of a community lies in the understanding that everyone has a role, and that strength, courage, and responsibility are distributed among its members. When individuals recognize this, they begin to see that heroism is not a distant ideal. It is something that exists within reach, among the people who share their streets, schools, workplaces, and homes. Heroes are not born from titles or positions. They are born from awareness, empathy, and the willingness to act when others are in danger. One of the most powerful aspects of community is the immediate accessibility of support. When someone is threatened, isolated, or bullied, the presence of people who are willing to intervene can make all the difference. Often, the people who step forward are neighbors, friends, or passers-by, ordinary individuals who notice injustice and refuse to remain passive. This proximity is critical. A hero does not need to be someone on television or in the headlines. They can be the person living next door, walking past on the street, or watching from a nearby classroom. The capacity to act heroically is not determined by status or experience alone, but by a willingness to embrace responsibility and respond with courage when it matters most. Communities that foster awareness, connection, and mutual support empower these ordinary heroes to emerge in ways that can profoundly impact the lives of others. The idea that heroes can be anyone nearby also underscores the importance of vigilance within a community. When people pay attention to their surroundings, recognize when someone is in trouble, and are willing to step in, they transform ordinary spaces into zones of safety and accountability. This vigilance is not passive. It requires conscious engagement and moral clarity. Heroes emerge not because of innate bravery alone, but because they notice what needs to be done and act decisively. Community vigilance creates a culture in which harmful behavior, such as bullying or harassment, is less likely to go unchallenged. It fosters the understanding that each member has the potential to influence outcomes, protect the vulnerable, and uphold the shared values of fairness and justice. Community-based heroism also highlights the ripple effect of courageous actions. When someone intervenes to protect another, they inspire others to do the same. Witnessing an ordinary person act decisively in a moment of need sends a message that standing up is possible and necessary. This influence is contagious. One act of courage can mobilize multiple people to take responsibility, creating a network of protection that strengthens the entire community. The power of this ripple effect demonstrates that heroism is not confined to singular acts. It is embedded in the collective actions of ordinary individuals who recognize their capacity to make a difference. Another key dimension is the sense of belonging that arises when community members act in defense of one another. When someone intervenes to help a person in need, they affirm that the individual is not alone and that the community values their safety, dignity, and well-being. This reinforcement builds trust, solidarity, and resilience within the community. People feel more empowered, confident, and connected when they know that help is available nearby. Heroism in this context is both practical and symbolic. It is practical in that immediate intervention can prevent harm, but it is also symbolic in that it represents the moral and ethical foundation of the community. Ordinary heroes reinforce the idea that safety, justice, and compassion are communal responsibilities rather than individual luxuries. Communities that recognize and cultivate local heroism also instill a sense of accountability and ethical engagement. People learn that their actions matter, that they are capable of protecting others, and that standing by in the face of wrongdoing is a choice rather than a necessity. This awareness fosters moral courage among members, creating a cycle in which ordinary heroes model behavior that inspires similar action in others. The presence of nearby heroes reshapes expectations about responsibility, demonstrating that one does not need exceptional skills, titles, or resources to make a meaningful impact. The willingness to act, grounded in ethical principles and empathy, is often enough to change outcomes and save lives. The accessibility of heroism within a community also emphasizes the idea that strength is collective. While individual courage is important, the support and cooperation of others amplify its impact. Community heroes act as catalysts, reminding everyone that each member has a role to play in maintaining safety, fairness, and justice. Heroism, in this sense, is not isolated. It is woven into the fabric of everyday life, appearing whenever someone chooses to intervene, protect, or speak out in the interest of another. By recognizing that heroes can be anyone nearby, communities empower their members to see themselves as capable, responsible, and essential contributors to the well-being of those around them. Words have power. They can inspire, persuade, and comfort. But when it comes to demonstrating true character, nothing communicates more effectively than actions. People often talk about values, principles, and intentions, yet words alone cannot guarantee impact or change. Anyone can speak bravely, promise justice, or declare support for the vulnerable, but without action, these words remain hollow. It is through concrete deeds, through visible and deliberate responses to real situations, that a person's character is revealed. Actions embody belief. They convert ideals into reality. Choosing to act in defense of someone being bullied, to intervene when injustice occurs, or to support those in need transforms moral and ethical principles from abstract concepts into tangible outcomes. In this sense, actions carry authenticity that words alone cannot replicate. The principle that actions speak louder than words is particularly evident in situations of conflict or danger. Words may signal intention or disapproval, but in the face of aggression, hesitation, or indecision, they are often insufficient. A bully may hear someone call them out, or someone may loudly proclaim their disapproval of injustice. Yet the effectiveness of these words is limited if not paired with meaningful action. Physical or decisive intervention, even in measured or symbolic ways, communicates resolve and courage in a way that verbal warnings cannot. Those who take action demonstrate that they are willing to bear responsibility, face potential risk, and prioritize ethics over convenience. Words may express concern, actions enforce it. This principle also applies to moral and social leadership. Leaders often inspire through speeches and declarations, but their credibility depends on follow-through. Communities, schools, and workplaces respond to deeds, not merely promises. When someone actively steps in to help a person in danger, stands against wrongdoing, or defends the powerless, they set an example that transcends rhetoric. Others are compelled to recognize and emulate these behaviors because they demonstrate that courage, integrity, and accountability are lived, not just spoken. Actions communicate priorities, ethics, and commitment in ways that words alone cannot clarify, creating lasting influence and meaningful impact. Furthermore, actions often reveal courage where words fail. Many individuals may feel fear, uncertainty, or doubt in critical moments, making verbal declarations inadequate. The act of moving forward, of physically or decisively confronting a situation, communicates bravery and determination in the face of potential risk. A war veteran intervening to protect a schoolgirl, for example, demonstrates that courage is not theoretical but practical. The decision to act shows both recognition of wrongdoing and a commitment to correcting it. Words may describe fearlessness or justice, but only action confirms it. This distinction is essential, as people often judge the integrity and resolve of others not by what they say, but by what they do when it matters most. Actions also carry a moral clarity that words cannot always convey. Language can be vague, ambiguous, or subject to interpretation. Deeds, however, have direct consequences and visible results. Standing up for someone being bullied is an unequivocal demonstration of loyalty, protection, and ethical responsibility. It communicates to the victim that they are valued and to the aggressor that their behavior will not go unchallenged. In moments of ethical or social conflict, action eliminates ambiguity, showing commitment, courage, and principle in ways that speech alone rarely achieves. People remember actions far longer than they remember words, because actions leave tangible marks on the world, whereas words can fade without lasting effect. The principle that actions speak louder than words also emphasizes the responsibility of witnesses. Observers may express outrage verbally, comment on wrongdoing, or promise to intervene if necessary. Yet these statements are meaningless unless followed by real intervention. Stepping forward, offering assistance, or confronting injustice transforms passive awareness into active responsibility. Words can signal intent, but without action, they cannot prevent harm, support the vulnerable, or restore fairness. Real influence comes from doing rather than merely talking, from demonstrating values in ways that produce outcomes rather than empty assurances. Moreover, actions reinforce trust and credibility. When people consistently act in accordance with their words, their integrity is strengthened. Conversely, when words are disconnected from deeds, credibility is undermined and authority, respect, and moral influence diminish. Demonstrating ethical behavior through action ensures that principles are not merely theoretical, but applied and meaningful. Each act of intervention, protection, or support reinforces the idea that commitment to others is measured by what we do, not by what we say. Finally, actions inspire others in ways that words alone rarely achieve. Witnessing someone confront wrongdoing, defend the vulnerable, or uphold justice encourages observers to act similarly. Action generates momentum, proving that ideals are attainable and that courage, responsibility, and morality can be practiced in real life. The ripple effect of actions, unlike words alone, produces visible change and strengthens communities, shaping both individual and collective behavior in profound and lasting ways.